Wait, sir. Just a moment. Yes, sir. We are live now. Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. We welcome you all to the second season of Youthful IRSI. After a successful season 1, we are back now with season 2, chapter 1. It's been a journey of about 18 months. We've had 15 webinars, 3 physical conferences, and all this would never have been possible without the support of the IRSI Executive Committee. Before we go ahead with this season 2, chapter 1, I would like Mr. Navneet to share a couple of videos about our journey that we've had throughout the last 15 months.
Sure. Yeah.
So all our topics have been pertaining to youngsters, something that is going to practically help them throughout life. And today's topic is also something which is absolutely a backbone of running a successful practice, which is administration in ophthalmology. Now, who all to hire? What are their job specifications? Am I the only one who's enough to run my practice? As a youngster, all these questions are always there in your mind. So here we are to answer all these questions. And before we start the session, we would like to welcome our new president, Dr. Ragini, who's not here with us because she's a little unwell. And I would also like to ask Dr. Manshu Mehta, who's the senior most here at the moment, to share his experience about how important it is to be a good administrator along with a good surgeon.
Hi, good evening everyone. Thanks Rohan for inviting me for this chat, and thank you for starting this IRSI session for the youthful wing almost for a year and a half plus during COVID time that you started. I think a lot of contribution, a lot of juniors who come up and told me that they've really learned a lot. And various topics have been covered up, from buying equipments to medical legal aspect. Of course, everything to do about ophthalmology, you always have multiple conferences where everything is being talked about. But here is how to go about, when to buy, what to do, what not to do, some very practical thing. And the most important thing is you guys across the country, having the advantage of Zoom and the media now, can form a great team across the country, because that is what we are looking at for India to take a lead in the next decade in ophthalmology across the world. You guys can form a great team, and that can take it a lot more further across the country. You have had great participation. You have great people to support you. Mohan Rajan has given you unconditional support. Amar, name it. And of course, our all-time favorite Gaurav is there. Gaurav has always been there. Gaurav has been the Gaurav of IRSI and Mumbai Ophthalmology Society also. So let's come to the main topic which you've taken up, administration. This is something which we all hate. Put a surgeon in his cap in the operating room from morning 8 o'clock till night 8 o'clock. He's happy, smiling, and he comes out smiling. But you put him in admin room for 2 to 3 hours, he's most depressed with 4 coffees gulping down. He doesn't know what to do. That's not his job. We hate doing that admin stuff. It is how we hate it. You know, that admin combines the HR, the managing people, managing problems, managing each one's personal life, what equipment, when serviced, what to do with municipalities, what to do with various organizations, all the licenses that you have had to have, all the mail from patients, all the headaches that you have to, all those things are humongous. And if you are on your own, believe me, to have those multifaceted, like the juggler has 3 to 5 balls to juggle. You start your practice, you'll have 15-20 balls to juggle. They only talk about family, professional life, personal life. 2-3 balls they keep talking. Admin is another 20 balls to juggle, and one goes off here or there, or if somebody's ego in the office is hurt, you don't care for someone, or your equipment is not functioning, if it is not serviced, if your licenses are not cleared in time, believe me, it can create a havoc. Right from your insurance policy, your personal accident, to your infrastructure, to every equipment, CMC, it's a great task. So I think it's a very nice topic that you wanted to be. Saurabh, welcome to the show. Thanks for being there. And Aditya,
pleasure,
thanks
sir.
so much. Anurag,
Yeah.
wonderful, everybody. And Anshika is the cheerleader now. It was fun. Always smiling and being there to support and learning so much. Great. Fantastic initiative, Ron. I would like to learn a few things because I wish I had this understanding how to do admin. Believe me, it's tough. And at times you feel doing a complex retina or a complex phaco is a little more easier than doing admin and managing people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome our first speaker this evening, Dr. Saurabh Luthra, Director of Luthra Vision Center and Research Center in Bilaspur. With more than 15 years of experience, he's here to tell us about a one-man show for your practice, the merits and its demerits. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Ron. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so I hope it's visible.
It is, sir.
I'll just put on the. Okay, so thank you, Rohan and team, for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak and put my thoughts onto this. So of course, I would start it with the audiences to check, as in how many of us would think that what does a one-man show would have. Maybe you can write in the YouTube chat or wherever, and we can. Meanwhile, we'll just take it from there. Because, for example, somebody would say, "Theek hai, you need to operate." Somebody would say that you are probably just seeing patients. So let me just give you a very brief idea. It is not only that. Apart from that, I am also, or rather, one has to take care of the staff, the legal aspects, the taxation. So basically, as the saying goes, it is all about the administration. And I think Himanshu sir has given a very good brief idea that it's actually a little tough job. So I would just go a little into administration. So what is administration? So the word per se, the dictionary meaning is derived from a Latin word called administre, which means to care for or look after people, to manage affairs. It has its own nature, it is universal, it has a holistic approach, it's a continuous and ongoing process, it is goal oriented, social and human nature about it is automatically there, and it is very dynamic thing which has to be, keep on innovating about it. So a small mnemonic as to what all elements would be there in administration. So of course it starts from planning, organizing, having the staffing done. Directing is again one of the very important aspects in administration. Coordinating, being available. I would still, quote my boss, Professor Amar sir, for any time of the day, if he's up and above, you drop him a message, he would come back to you. So he was so well connected amongst all of us that it just with a blink of moment he used to come back to us. So this was something which I would wanted to come back to my staff and do it. Reporting and of course budgeting. And most important, probably it's not mentioned, the availability, of course, about you being the head of the institute. What so doctor and administration should be, I personally feel that it should be a subject in our curriculum. In the huge course of 4.5 years, we've been taught everything: compassion, empathy towards patient, how to deal and talk to them. But there has to be a small scope of administration there, because a lot of people are getting into hospital administration after doing their MBBS. So something probably we have been growing up with, seeing, especially seeing our working moms, the basic skills. That's why I put this picture here. They are managing it so well. So maybe we have to learn from there. And at times in the last, it depends on what are you actually looking at to all the young buds who are with us, the upcoming budding ophthalmologist. So what's your goal? What are we really looking at? Either we want to join a corporate wherein the numbers come in handy, or we come up an idea of having a private practice wherein the capital per se plays a very important role, or maybe join an elder generation ophthalmologist. You become the second generation, which has its own merits and demerits. So what is it you want to achieve, and what want to be a part of game, or you want to create your own game, is something. I'll leave a question so that the audience can have an answer to that in the chat box. So what are we really looking at? We actually are looking at the happiness, the quotient that is very important, the social connections, the financial security, the acceptance and empathy, the work-life balance. So we don't want to smile, forcibly smile. This guy is trying to put, that somehow we have to do it. So merits or demerits, it's an ongoing process. Just imagine, like you were in college a few years back and you were trying to pull up a fest or something. You want to do it by yourself, everything, or you want to have a committee about it and get it done. Whatever happens, it grows gradually, year by year. It takes its own sweet time. So for me, I will start with the merits. You are the decision maker here. You are the boss. You know what calls to take, when to take. It of course improves the efficiency and productivity when the quality control comes under you. You connect with all the staff at the grassroots level, starting from the doorman to the housekeeping to the if you have a bigger setup, to the floor managers, hospital managers, and everybody who comes into play. Well trained in crisis management, you have the capacity and capability of managing all the kind of crises irrespective of your professional commitments. As I said, quality management is totally under your control, and this is the check, because may it be a corporate, may it be a self setup, this has to play, because after doing a good surgery or giving a correct eye power or treating the patient well, if he or she is not very happy with the qualities and the atmosphere offered, he would not want to come back. He would certainly, or she would look for another option. Learning the mindset of all classes, connects well with his or her patient clientele, of course, because you are dealing with all kind of people. And less legal formalities, because you are the one who's responsible for everything happening under your roof. Demerits, it can be extremely stressful. It certainly is. You're seeing a patient, you're probably counseling him for a nice IOL and a premium patient, and one of your staff comes in and says ki, that particular AC is not working, that something stuff is happening, or that CA is calling to check as to he hasn't received certain bills. So it bothers you. There is a hell lot of waste of a professional time. hampers your practice and growth. Of course, it is time consuming. You have to sit down for few more hours after even your professional, commitment is done. Of course, the family life suffers because you will have to squeeze in your time from your family and give it to your profession. Wherein, if you are managing the show and you're not ready to share the shoulders, it is leader dependent chaos in your absence. They are not able to handle, they are not handling, or rather they are not capable enough, or they don't feel that they can handle in your absence. From the staff's perspective, the decision making is slow. They are dependent on you. It creates a work culture based on leader ki theek hai, if he's there he will manage the show. Hum to apna kaam kare and then you're good to go. It does not offer a sense of professional ownership to them. They don't want to take that pride that this is something which they are responsible to. They know what they are supposed to do. For example, out of 3, 2 optometrists are missing. So I'm operating and I get a call that how to start the OPD. Only one of the optometrists is there. So it tends to bother you in the OT OR as well, that okay, after finishing my OR, how would I run the show there. So if somebody is already assigned, he or she can probably take care of that. As to how the leaves would come, sometimes you don't remember, you give leaves to 2% at the same time, don't realize that. So in this study, there was this small thing wherein 47% they said that they have missed out on their social functions because of being over involved. Some said, almost 32%, that they lost their sleep over it. Only 6% said that they were very happy about it. So I'm sure the demerits come up a little more of to than the merits. So we have to learn to share shoulders. So very important thing is you need to have this balance wherein you work, play, be with the family, be with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. At this moment, I'd like to bring in Dr. Anurag. Sir, your 2 cents about a one-man show.
Well, it's all sweetness all around, Rohan. I completely agree with Dr. Saurav, and you have to present both aspects of the coin if you are presenting from a podium in a show like this, so that the messaging is clear and crisp. But since you asked for my 2 cents, it's obviously going to be my personal opinion. And my opinion is, if you have worked so hard in learning and becoming the one you are today, then there's no point why you should be working for somebody else. Work for yourself, lift yourself up, give yourself the trophy, climb up, and then, root the flag there. I mean, it's all sweetness. There have been challenges. It's true that your family time gets compromised with, and you have different subsets to look at, and some of them are extremely difficult to stand by and support and then justify later on. But it has its own charm. It has its own nectar, and that nectar is what we all work for. So I get it more. I have the exposure to both the worlds, working in an institute and then starting on my own. And I have enjoyed the nectar from my own private practice because it's always tasted sweeter to me. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Himanshu, sir, your experience, you've had about 35 years of experience in both. In fact, you have sort of done a private practice along with an institutional practice, which your city allows you to. So give us your sense of it. You're on mute, sir.
Rohan has just made me realize how old I've got. 35 years of practice, that means. He just made me realize in half a minute. Anna Sarab?
We won't forgive you for this, buddy.
So it's nice, yeah. What he said, Anurag said, it comes from the heart. He was saying absolutely from the heart. That smile, the confidence. You don't pass on the buck. You take the responsibility, you take the credit, and you take the discredit. The buck stops at you. And if you like taking that, there are 2 kinds of people. Glass आधा खाली आधा भरा है. There are people who are risk averse, and there are people who are high risk takers. I'm one of the high risk takers. So that's why we all became surgeons, actually speaking. But then in our department also, there are quite a few physician surgeons who always postpone surgery. अभी नहीं, बाद में देखेंगे. अच्छा, retina को दिखा दो. Some of them act like sorry, but this is like a policeman at the signal. Go left, go right, go to pediatric, go to cornea, go to retina, go to glaucoma, go to this, that. Well, there is fun in interacting with patient. Most of us are alive here because of surgery and two, interacting with patient. I think the biggest kick of life that we get is out of that. Otherwise, we would have become pathologists or radiologists if we are really introverts. And the advantage of private practice is, why not? If you're learning various techniques of surgery, why wouldn't you in this lifetime learn everything else that you want to learn? It's beautiful. There is so much to learn, from finance to making a second livelihood. Go to the stock market, property investment. It's just fun. It's a great art. People spend their lives in it, and there's so much to learn. It's so much fun. You take it that way, it's fun. You take it as a responsibility, and that you've been punished by putting in one corner, well, so be it. Then you'll feel like that. But I mean, you look at the confidence, the body language of Anurag, and you look at somebody who is working for somebody else. You can see the body language from the time they walk, talk, to the moment they deliver. There's a huge difference in that. You can make out from far off. So, well, I am for that. I've been fortunate that I've been with institutions, and I'll tell you the institutions. Nanavati, Leelavati, two major institutions of the country. Believe me, a lot of my colleagues who started in their life, they've been thrown off in life without any questions when the management changed. So you are a disposable commodity anytime over there. This is going to hurt, but it's a fact of life. Poor neurosurgeons, poor cardiac surgeons, they've put in 30 years of practice in a particular hospital, and one fine day, they realize a new team which has come up, and they have no significance. It hurts big time, because you haven't. At first, they'll cut your wings out. They will tell you that you can't practice this, you can't do this, you can't do that. They'll cut your wings, and then now once you are dependent on them, I'll give you examples what they do in other hospitals. If a surgeon, if a consultant becomes popular, the PR team downstairs automatically guides patients to a newer person, and or says you can't get Dr. Mishra's appointment for next 3 months. He's very good, no doubt, but he's very busy. Why don't you try the new doctor? Dr. Himanshu Mehta has just joined the clinic, and he's good. Why don't you try? This is how, without you understanding, the floor starts slipping under your leg. You wouldn't know what's happening. And I've seen it myself with hospitals with Nanavati. Suddenly your OPD would go down and somebody else starts getting it. So these are things where you are a replaceable commodity in the world. And you are in a hospitality industry. So you have to strike a very thin line of balance here, whether you want to do it on your own, take the world on your own and fight it out. It is fun. Or you want to be protected by institutions, you don't want to buy equipment, you don't want to have capex, you don't want to have anything else. That's how you would look at it then. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. So now we'll move to our next talk, and then we'll have a good discussion about that.
Our second speaker is none other than Dr. Anurag Mishra, Director of Radharaman Hospital, one of the highest performing eye care in Eastern India, with its mission to serve everyone with affordable expense, matched with new technology. We have him on our show to talk about how to budget a new technology each year and how to make it happen. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Thank you, Rohan, for pulling me in to this wonderful session here this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Greetings and regards from the land of Lord Jagannath. I'm thankful to you, Rohan, for more than one reason. One of them was actually I went back and did a lot of mud digging to understand how we have done what we have done in the past 11 years or so. 2011 is when I started my hospital, and we're standing in 2022 now. So that's how it went. We'll just come to that in a minute or two. We have heard a lot of authorities in the field saying that you enslave technology. Technology should not enslave you. They quote various persons, including Albert Einstein and his famous quote. I would beg to disagree with all of them. Technology is not something that enslaves you. It definitely does not enslave you if you use it in the proper sense, in the proper proportions that it is meant to. Nor do you attempt to enslave technology. Rather, both of these aspects, technology and human beings, should join hand in hand and work together towards the future. Believe me, if you're not entrusting technology to take care of your needs, you will not have what we all work for. And what we all work for in the field of private practice, at least, if we do not have a brand equity and we're trying to build it, is this. We want to have the tag of premiumhood in our centers. All of us want that. All of us desire that. And the only way you can have it is perhaps to work hand in hand or hand in glove with technology and not trying to enslave or be enslaved by it. Right. So every human being undergoes three essential stages in life: the crawl stage, the walk stage, and then the run stage. We call them the developmental milestones, motor developmental milestones. A professional also undergoes all these three stages, wherein he himself should chart when the crawl stage should transform into the walk stage, and the walk stage should then transform to the run stage. In a professional's life, these are not developmental milestones. We would call them wishful milestones. And these wishful milestones would give you a roadmap as to how should you go about adopting, installing, and owning technology. I charted my roadmap, and this is how it had been. 2011, as I told you, is when I started my hospital with a basic slit lamp and a basic refraction setup and a basic ultrasound biometer, a very, very basic microscope in lead. And then from 2012 onwards, this has been the journey. In 2012, the first equipment came to me, which was OcuScan, cut above the rest of the ultrasonic biometers at that stage before it went out of production. In 2013, I got the Infinity phaco machine with me. The phaco machine before that was very basic. In 2014, I got the video slit lamp because I wanted to document my patients, take a few pictures or videos, and then I wanted to graduate to the optical biometry and got the IL Master 500 after a lot of debacle with different machines in the market. In 2015, the Lumira Eye microscope replaced the basic microscope, which was there earlier on, the step magnification microscope. So the Lumira Eye came in. In 2016, the IL Master 700 replaced the IL Master 500. We also got the aberrometry eye trace installed in my setup. In 2017, the next set of equipments, which was the Signature Pro phaco machine, which is just a segment above Infinity, and also wanted to have a premium phaco machine as a standby, and the specular microscope to look at the elderly patients who might have had a corneal weakness. In 2018, it was a host of equipments. The Centurion came in, the image-guided system called Variant came in, spectral OCT to scan the retina in a few patients came in because it is legally important to have this in your setup. And the phoropter, all the refractions from then on have been carried out automatically with a land-based phoropter system. In 2019, we got the femtolaser platform, Lens 6, in our hospital. In 2020, which was COVID hit, we got the Heidelberg anterior, the comprehensive anterior segment viewing machine from Heidelberg. In 2021, we got the dry eye suite, which was important for a few patients when we started learning that we are burning our fingers in a few patients, in a few ATIL patients, in a few premium patients, when we are not looking at the surface of the eye. And a few days back, or a few weeks back in 2022, we have the Luxor Revalia premium microscope now installed, and which will replace the Lumira Eye as the primary microscope in my setup. So this was my roadmap. You can have yours. You're always free to choose your own roadmap, build your own roadmap. But the important thing here is you must have a dream to live it. So how do you live your dream? How do you make you financially capable so that you can have one new technology established in your center virtually every calendar year? So the first thing I would like to advise you is to stop accepting anything in cash. This increase the cash flow means increase the flow of cash into the books of accounts. This is the accounting language. So increase the cash flow and fatten your books of accounts. If your gross income does not show X value, you cannot officially show that you're buying this equipment of Y value. The Y has to be a fraction of X. If X does not fatten, then Y will be very, very limited. You'll have limited choices. In today's world, if anything is billed to you, it'll be in white. So there's no point in building the number 2 at your house because you would not be able to spend it properly. The other thing that is important is, after you set your roadmap properly, the other thing that is important for you to understand is, if you have created a bulk in the volume of finances, if you have built a pool, you must back invest a fraction of that pool to where it came from. So your hospital, your center is the one that generates the bulk for you, generates the pool for you. A fraction of that pool should go back to the place which has generated it. That should happen at a regular basis. It doesn't have to be in terms of equipments. It can be as simple as coloring your walls, affixing wallpapers, changing the tiles, getting the sterilization equipments, buying a new property. If you have the dream of building your own building, getting a property somewhere, that could also be one of the things incorporated in the roadmap. Calculate your profit percentage every year and the rate of growth. So in the commercial industry, if you're showing a growth of, in terms of profit, if you're showing a growth of 20%, that is not adjusted according to, I mean, if you have raised your price somewhere in between the calendar year, the rate of growth is close to 20%, you're doing very well. And there's no reason why you should not back invest into your own setup if your rate of growth is showing 20% every calendar year for maybe consecutive 2 years or so. Compute the possible depreciation amount after you have negotiated with the manufacturer regarding the equipment that you want to buy. Do calculate the depreciation. Now, what is depreciation? If you have, say, an equipment is costing 1 lakh, 15% of that, which is 15,000, will be deducted from your taxable income. So you're saving on tax. After your negotiation, you should look at the depreciation value of that equipment. And depreciation is not calculated with the amount you're paying to the company to buy it. For example, if the cost of the equipment is 1 lakh, but you're paying 10,000 rupees upfront, depreciation is not calculated on 10,000 rupees. Depreciation is calculated on 1 lakh. And every year, 15% of that is calculated, and you do get tax benefits till the value becomes zero. So I'll show you an Excel sheet in a while from now. Then finally, you must build a corpus which gives you return or growth. If you put in the money in the bank, it goes stale. So if you put the money that in your corpus fund, if you put the money in some kind of an SIP or some other investment, it will give you rich return. The market is volatile, understood, but your finance advisor is going to take care of that. Trust me. So how do I do that? My finance team has 3 people. One of them is obviously the accountant of the hospital. The other is the finance advisor. Since we are building a corpus, the financial advisor is somebody who is actually a market expert. He looks at the market values. He looks at the Sensex values. He looks at the different fund performances. He looks at the SIP. He looks at the hot area where we should be putting in money right now. And he also does advise us regarding the appropriate time to put them in. So the market is low. If you have long-term plans, put in money so that the market rises and you get bonus units so that it fattens the capital amount that is there. Both of them report to the final finance authority, which is the chartered accountant in my case. So he prepares the balance sheet, and then it is prepared once every quarter. So we prepare 4 balance sheets in a year. These 3 guys meet fortnightly, and along with me, we meet once every month. So this is the Excel sheet that we are talking about. This started building from 2015, because 2015 is when my hospital was converted into a private limited company. Before that, it was an ownership firm, a proprietorship firm. So this is the growth percentage that we achieve every year. And look at 2019-20, for example. This is the asset that we have added on in 2019-20, amounting to 2 crores 68 lakhs 82,000 rupees. Out of which we get the depreciation worth 53 lakhs in the first year. And the tax that is saved in the process is 15 lakhs 92,000. So almost 16 lakhs of tax we have saved just by buying an equipment. And this is just the first year. You are going to get it in the subsequent years as well. The amount that we paid for this particular asset addition in 2019-20 was 50 lakhs. So we paid 50 lakhs, out of which we are already gaining or saving on 16 lakhs. So people do not calculate that normally. You do calculate that because that is going to show you that you're actually not spending much as far as installing the equipment is concerned. What should worry you though is the CMC of every equipment, But the CMC of every equipment, again, is very, very negotiable, and it can be adjusted with various things. Maybe 100 rupees enhancement in your surgical packages is going to cover for all the CMCs that you have in all the equipment. So as you add on to the technology, you should also add on a nominal fees to your surgical packages. It doesn't hurt the patients if you add 500 or 1,000 rupees to your surgical packages. It doesn't hurt them. They are happy, and you also be happy in serving them, and you retrieve the cost without charging anything specifically for this expensive investigation modalities. There's certain other snippets that I would like to talk to you about. Limit the number of manufacturers. If you negotiate with one company, if it has majority of the equipments in its armamentarium, and you limit the number of manufacturers, it's easier for you. And I would advise you to stick to the manufacturer which also has a good presence in the field of consumables in terms of IOLs and other consumables, because consumables is what builds the business volume for them as well. So if you give them good volume of support in terms of consumables, they would be ready to come down on the pricing and the deferred payment structures, spread it over a period of 48 to 60 months for every equipment that they place at your setup. Look at core competence. I'll cite an example here. There are two companies who are excellent in the viewing system. One is Topcon, the other one is Zeiss. But in my experience, when it comes to a split lamp, I've always found the Topcon to be performing better. But when it comes to the microscope, I've always found, we all have found Zeiss to be performing better until recently, of course, Zeiss to be performing better. So look at the core competence of every equipment. Talk to your colleagues, the seniors, before you buy them. Pre-decide on one equipment. You know what you're going to buy, but play around with the rest of the players in the market. So that will give you that negotiable, that margin for negotiation. So you negotiate them with very hard. You hire a harsh negotiator, who might just work with you as one of the administrative officers in your hospital. The one that works for me is somewhat of a kind of an administrative officer at my hospital, and believe me, he is a matriculate. He has never visited a college, but when it comes to the negotiation part, he is extremely tough nut to crack. Let the vendors know that you just sign the check. You don't take decisions. While as you do take the decisions, you are the one who is talking to the colleagues. You do have your say in that, but the vendor should know that you just sign the check. You do not decide on anything. So time and again, they are actually directed to the harsh negotiator, because the companies will try to get to you, because you're the one who's got the most amount of mannerisms as per them, but you direct them back to the harsh negotiator time and again. Trust a deferred and fractionated payment more than a bank loan, because bank loan always has interest amounts added on, and you do not get any tax benefits in the interest amount. So the deferred payment, which only adjusts the capital that the company is going to take from you, is what you should be looking at. And if they have consumables with them, it also helps. And I would definitely advise all the young Turks here not to trust the non-banking finance companies, because non-banking finance companies always have a lot of hidden agenda. One of them is, when you pay the EMI back to them, it is GST chargeable. They don't tell you that. So it is GST chargeable. They would tell you the EMI amount. When you pay them, say it's 1 lakh, you have to deposit GST, and they would refund it back to you. They would never adjust it from their future EMIs. So after you're through with your payments, they would do it every quarterly. And believe me, once you're through with payments of all your EMIs, for the last 2 or 3 segments, they really play you around with. They just don't respond to your calls and messages and mails. And so NBFCs, I don't trust them. Before wrapping it up, I would just like to give you one example of how technology helps you. So this was one patient of mine who was a high myopic and was using glasses all along his life. The glasses had very high spherical power. The glasses also had very high cylindrical power. And the cylindrical power that came actually surprised us, because when the patient came to us, he had cataract, a young patient. And when we calculated the IL power, this is the Varian image guided system, and it recommended us an IL power of 3 diopters. And it suggested that the patient needs a T2, but he was using huge cylinder. So this patient was suggested a T2. We got intrigued. Why this huge cylinder in the glasses when the corneal cylinder is not very high? So we subjected the patient to an anterior segment OCT, and we found that there is not exactly a posterior lenticonus, but the cortex is a little conical shaped here. So probably there was a posterior lenticonus associated with that, and that's the reason why there was a lenticular astigmatism along with that. We subjected this patient to eye trace. We saw that the tracy refraction, which is essentially calculated on the anterior lens capsule, showed a huge value of minus 5.5 instead of 1, which the patient needed at the corneal front. What is also important here is if you go up from the, according to the pupillary size from 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters to 4 millimeters, progressively the cylindrical value reduces from minus 6.49 to minus 4.44, minus 5.44. So when you expand the pupil, the conical shape is inducing maximum amount of cylinder right at the center. And when you go wider in the pupillary size, the cylindrical value just go down. And it obviously has a lot of higher order aberrations induced on the internal side, making this, the corneal plane is doing pretty well. So luckily this patient opted for femto LASIK because as you saw, the IL calculated power, IL power was 3 diopters and torics are not available in that power range. So we adjusted the cylinders that the patient required with a paired arcuate incision. So that is what is being carried out in this patient's eye. So this patient's cylinder was neutralized as well as the sphere. This was the second eye. The first eye was operated in one of the premier institutes of India. So that eye was also doing well. The patient has a 6/6 both eyes, but you can see the phoropter screen to know the difference. The left eye, which was operated with this combination of technologies, doesn't have any refraction, but the right eye, which also has a 6/6, has a 1.5 cylinder left over in terms of refraction. So it's anybody's guess as regards to with which eye the patient would be happier. So this comes the final picture. So gone are those days when we used to say that you under-promise and over-deliver. This is an era wherein the promise should actually match the expectations. So what you do is you make the left-hand side arrow undergo in-cyclotorsion and the right-hand side arrow undergo x-cyclotorsion, and then you make both the arrows move towards each other, wherein technology comes in to help you, and they fuse to make a huge subset which would build your brand value and take it to new heights. Thank you so much, Rohan and team, for the opportunity. I rest and the audience, the patient audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was generally words of wisdom that you said, and for the new ophthalmologists just starting up their own clinic should know, get a roadmap of how to, procure funding and what they should do next. Dr. Mehta, I think you had a similar roadmap. What would your take on this be?
Pooja, your voice is echoing. You might have to do something about the echo. Yeah, it's echoing. No, so he's given a brilliant, Anurag has given a brilliant pathway. I think couldn't make it better. As he said, he's really taken a lot of efforts to prepare this presentation. This is not from he's done it from a perspective of the management and from the doctor's perspective. Thank you, Anurag. A lot of pain. I'll like to borrow it to go through it slowly and see through that slowly.
My honor, sir.
Great. So, Pooja, what was your question? I didn't quite get your question.
Couple of things that I actually picked up, sir, in your presentation that I wanted to ask. So you had an IOL Master 700 in 2015, and you again went for an Anterion in 2020. Any particular reason for doing that? Because IOL Master 700 is the so-called benchmark as far as optical biometers are concerned. So what was the need of getting an additional Anterion?
Yeah. It is definitely a benchmark when you consider optical biometry to be the sole measuring rod, Rohan. But there are so many things that Anterion does which the IOL Master 700 cannot do. A, it calculates the keratometry based on OCT technology, and it takes 28,000 points in calculating a very precise keratometry. B, it measures the posterior surface for you, which even a TK does not do. It's a Pachy-based posterior torus fit, but Anterion does calculate that. It's a tomographer. It has a 1300 nanometer wavelength of light instead of the 1050 that the 700 uses. So its penetration is higher. It gives you a continuous A scan. So there are various things that are incorporated in the Anterion. We have found that in the most whites of cataracts, where the 700 at times fails to take a reading, the anterior has given us very accurate readings. There are almost a host of things which probably would be beyond the scope of this particular session. So in the interest of time, we should not go beyond that. But the anterior is a very wholesome machine. The only thing that limits its widespread installation is its cost. But if you take the wholesome, they have different modules, but if you take the complete loaded version, then it's a little more expensive than an optical biometry should be available at. But it's a fantastic machine to work with. Trust me.
Yeah. The other thing was that you said that you converted your sole proprietorship into a private limited. So just for the benefit of every youngster, what are the advantages that you'll get if you convert it into a private limited? So
if your earnings are beyond 1 CR, then you are actually levied a surcharge in the income tax. So if you split your earnings, if you are a proprietorship firm, then the whole thing gets pulled into your account. But if you have a private limited company, then the tax benefits are there. So you are already in the 30% slab, and then they charge you 15% surcharge if your income's more than that. Sorry for opening up so much, but this is the reason why. So now after the recent government has assumed office, they have built a beautiful system to promote the smaller companies. So they have a 25% flat. It was 15%. It was 25% earlier. I think that now they've reduced to 15%. So the 15% tax slab, there is no standard deduction, but it is 15% for the whole income that's for the private limited companies. And the other thing is once you cross a particular proportion in your practice and you assume a higher volume and a higher status in the society, private limited company is actually something that gives you that extra bit of status recognition. So the brand equity just grows a little more. So one who does have a particular volume of work should actually have his or her organization converted to a private limited company is what I feel. Yeah.
Right. So I have a question for Dr. Nishant because he does a lot of refractive surgery as well. So, sir, budgeting new technology into refractive surgery. Now, refractive surgery is a totally different ball game when it comes to the, the input of money that's required in stepping up your technology. So, what would you say that there are actually some people in refractive surgery per se, as youngsters, as we also see, who come in with a particular mind that we want this particular platform. That's not really the case in a cataract surgery. They just want a cataract surgery mostly. But youngsters, the Google generation, they come in that I want a particular platform. So, you have one particular thing. It's very difficult for a single person, if you're not in an institute, to have multiple refractive platforms in your setup. So then how do you deal with such a situation?
So exactly like how Dr. Anurag had told, I would like to just add by saying that before you select your refractive machine, so make sure that you have done your research properly. To be frank, before I bought my machine, I went to Dr. Rohit Shetty, who's actually got all the 5 refractive platforms available in the world. I spent 2 days with him on what each machine can do. So I did such a research in terms of what each machine is good. Every LASIK machine is good, but there are some advantages of one over the other. So then I finalized and came to the Schwinn platform, which gave me an overall help. But it doesn't. I'm not having any financial support here, but I'm just saying that in terms of what you want in your place, and there were not many people who are having the Schwinn in Chennai. So that is also one thing. So when I bring a Schwinn into the market, I can say that the first of its kind in Chennai, even though it is as equivalent to an Alcon. Yes, AMO is good. Everything is good. But what people don't have here, what is something new which you can bring is what I will say when you are planning to buy a new refractive machine.
Yeah. So Dr. Aditya, sir, your experience as a pediatric ophthalmologist, I'm sure that you being in Delhi and as a pediatric ophthalmologist, you get a lot of anxious parents who are, of course, they dig in even deeper on the internet to find out about technology. So how do you deal with that, sir?
So luckily, pediatric ophthalmology, it's all about gray hair. So I'm waiting for that. And I've got a few, so I show that off. Technology, so much, not so much. But I want to add about a couple of more things to Dr. Anurag's point of view. One is I always follow this 50% rule that I have, that if you can buy a technology twice over. Go ahead and buy it without thinking. But don't limit yourself, or like he said, a lot of times you feel you're a slave to technology. It's those people who actually, looking at his balance sheet, clearly that wasn't his case, but a lot of people do feel the pressure of having a technology if it doesn't perform for them. So that happens if you can't really afford the technology, that is, can't buy it twice. That's my funda to that. And the second is when you're in a bigger practice, group practice, where you have retina surgeons, you have glaucoma surgeons, new things are happening in glaucoma, in retina. What do you want to buy that year? That meeting is also essential along with the market research. So yeah, technology does drive your practice to an extent, and pediatric ophthalmology, luckily, the maximum we buy is prisms and toys.
Great. So Dr. Anshika, if you can introduce Dr. Aditya for the talk.
Yes, thank you. So our next speaker is Dr. Aditya Sethi, Director of Aranodaya Eye Hospital. He's a graduate from Shankar Netralaya Eye Hospital and administers multiple doctors and a brigade of staff at his center to manage the smooth functioning of his hospital. We have him shedding some light on multitasking. Is it asking too much of your staff? Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. My dad will be very upset because he heard I'm the director of the hospital, but yeah, I'll just go ahead and share my slides. Can you see my desktop?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, right. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Aditya Sethi. I've been given the task to ask you if your staff should multitask. So let's get into it. Our daily lives or of our staff is quite like this lady right there. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. But the question is she efficient? Is she time efficient, or is she being inefficient here? So that's what we're going to ask and answer. So the first thing I did when I got to know about this topic, that I've got this topic, is I Googled multitasking in hospitals. And what does it mean? So it refers to physicians, assistants dealing with more than one task simultaneously over same period of time during surgery. Sounds very scary, doesn't it? Or as a patient, or in other operations of healthcare system. So it's a complex, it's a big challenge, and has esteemed importance. So being a little complicated, it has a double-edged sword. So what are the pros and cons? The pros could be it's a cost-effective method of making your human resources meet your requirements. Good time management can be achieved with good multitasking. Less man management is required because obviously if you have multitasking staff, you don't need to hire so many people, and increased responsibility is good for the growth of the person and the institute. But what we are forgetting about is the other side, that whoever multitasks at that moment of multitasking, their IQ drops close to 10%. They're not attentive to what you want at that moment. There's loss in productivity, close to 40%. There's an attention span drop in retinal blindness. Blindness is what the studies show. I'll show a video of that if I have time. And rate of errors go up. So the good, the bad, and the ugly of multitasking. So before we make a decision, it may be very wise to ask yourself to do some pros and cons and ask yourself these questions. Does it make sense to get the new Gen Z? Because are they better multitaskers with their phones, with their lives, with everything else? No multitasking means loss of time. Is that a misnomer? Brain processes one information at a time. So is it actually wise to have multitasking as the main work? The guy at the reception who's also selling you glasses, who's also selling your pharmacy, and he's also trying to get the patients comfortable. Is he actually doing a good job, or are patients getting angry with him? Switching to and fro from one task to another, is it a really efficient manner or a misnomer? So the bad. Studies show multitasking actually prolongs time taken on each task. It results in poor quality work, and that is comparative to somebody who's monotasking. And is it really good management of time, or do these people actually take longer in finishing the simpler tasks by multitasking them? And do the results seem inferior? And what about new Gen Z? They're comfortable with tech. They already are multitaskers. You never see them without their phones. You never see them without their AirPods. They'll be doing a lot of things already. They have a high self-esteem. They have a sense of entitlement, which goes against them, and quick to rich, ambitious. So why do we prefer multitasking? It's a cost-efficient method of getting work done. Multitasking with technology comes second nature to these Gen Z. And it stimulates creativity. That's one of the main things about multitasking, and reduces the idle time, which often can be known as the devil's workshop. Uh, it reduces free time, enhances skill development while they could have been just loitering around, not doing their work. You've given them another job, which makes them think, which makes them go ahead and do something, learn something new, and can make and this makes a good multitasker indispensable to your workforce. If they are very good at their multitasking, you may want to hold on to them. You may decide that this is the person to lead your practice or be with you during your practice. And motivational multitasking, it can be, there's various theories behind it. Self-efficiency, the person feels he's very efficient and very responsible, and expectancy theory, which is they expect that they are essential to the system. So controversies, one research suggests multitasking is a big illusion. This big illusion being they think of them as highly productive and motivated, even when they might not be. And though it seems time efficient and productive, and often multitasking leads to high stress levels and low productive outputs. For example, while you're working in your clinic and suddenly another patient walks in and asks about his prescription, and the phone rings and something else. And like Sir said in this first talk, somebody asked, says that optometrist will not come, or you're in admin and things just blow out of proportion and you may forget to write that prescription correctly. So multitasking, is it a success? So negative effects of multitasking seem to outweigh benefits when the person is responsible for complex activities. Could be a doctor, could be an OT nurse, it could be an OT tech. And doing two or more things at one time adds stress, reduces ability to complete one task to the best of our abilities and to perfection. And often that leads to demotivation, rage, poor social skills, errors. And the results can be vary when we're talking about complex activities. Is it asking too much? So there's actually been a study on this topic, and Professor E. Miller, who's a researcher, compared simple task multitasking to complex task multitasking amongst professionals, and found simple taskers to be better off at the job in long term. And mental health also takes a hit when dealing with complex activities. You're already stressed, you're already on high levels, and you're doing complex activities. So suddenly you feel a little guilty. I could have done better. I could have done that job better. And there can be always low panic levels in these people. That leads to high levels of cortisol, stress in multitaskers, and they often age faster. So this is the video I was talking about. Let me see if I can play that for you. There we go. So I want everybody to pay attention and see this video from Siemens in Chabris.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count?
So how many passes? Anybody with a guess?
The correct answer is 15 passes.
But how many of you saw
I
the?
counted 12 actually. Yeah.
How many of you did you see the gorilla?
I saw the gorilla. Yeah, I did.
Yes.
We have some good efficient multitaskers amongst us.
We all thought that you were going to ask something on the gorilla only, dude.
This video is from research by.
Clearly, the presentation is not for you guys.
No, but I counted 12. I didn't count 15. Yeah. Maybe I was seeing the gorilla at that time.
Multitasking leads to problems. See? And to be more specific in ophthalmic setup, when do you multitask in your day? Busy practices. This can test your multitasking abilities. You're running late. Like we had a post in our WhatsApp chat, running late, put me later. Long queue to see you. Various examples can be said. And this all leads to brain frazzling experiences. The upside from multitasking in ophthalmic practice, multitaskers can be better at integrating information and better at their jobs. Like we had everybody answer that question very well. We become more efficient, we become time conserving, and all we have to do is manage this well. We often can be stress absorbers. So when you have these problems in the OT, we are much cooler than somebody who doesn't multitask. And the jack of all trades employee or employees can be useful for private practitioners, small scale institutes, charitable trusts, rarely institutes of large scale. They can also be useful there. So the key is organize first, multitask later. The key word is organize multitasking. List out where you could be caught multitasking. Watch out for the switching gears, that brain moving from one task to the other and forgetting about the other. Fact, the more you do, the better of multitasker you become. And fact, multitasking is one thing, unrealistic workload is another. That means if you have lots of things on your plate, you may not be a very healthy multitasker. So is it really a multitasker who we want? The idea of having an employee who can multitask is something that seems to be forgone. In the era of specialization, it may be more beneficial to have monotaskers rather than multitaskers. And multitasking is still a demand for all companies who hire individuals. But what they really mean is someone who can avoid switching between tasks. They can finish their task properly and then go to another task, which often can be called as multi-monotaskers rather than multitaskers. That means they can finish multiple tasks, each task efficiently at a time before switching to a new task. So how to achieve multiple tasking? Create a focused block of time to finish efficiently on a particular task. Create work boundaries. In that work boundaries, take off your phones, throw it aside. When you're doing your toric calculations is one example. Not ask everybody not to be disturbed. Little things that can make you a success. Rely on systems. People fail, systems don't. That's a reality. So make systems. Rely on checklists. Some help. There are various tools which are available to help you multitask. There can be daily planners, Google calendars. There's an app called Trello. There's Toggle, which is a time tracking app which helps you on which multitasking activity you spend maximum time. Multiple optometrists to a single ophthalmic surgeon. This is often the case. Very good way of getting your OPD streamlined. Multiple OPDs for one ophthalmic surgeon. That's also a very good way of maximizing. And multiple interns, residents to one ophthalmic surgeon, often in institutional practices. Multiple centers versus one ophthalmic surgeon, only for the time trained and efficient practitioners. And multiple OT tables in one ophthalmic surgeon, again, very common practice. Note, delegation of labor and work amongst your team works better in these situations. So we had one article in one of the very famous retinal physician journals, which suggested the use of script. Now, script are record keepers or record loggers. What they do is they'll make notes of what you're talking or what's happening, and patient notes and everything for you. And they found that the doctor was able to spend more time with the patient and get better results. So in conclusion, multitasking may be asking too much from your staff and you, but sometimes, and when used in the right context by the right people, makes a well-oiled system for success. But otherwise can be a double-edged sword with less rewards and more regrets. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Rohan, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Dr. Saurabh, your take on multitasking, sir, because you run a single person center. You don't have other ophthalmologists with you. So
yeah, so I agree to Aditya on a lot of things. That multi-mono thing sounds, it hits you really well. That, doing too many things at the same time, at times, can give you and it happens to everybody, missing something on the prescription and maybe then you're calling somebody. So yes, you need to streamline it. You need to prioritize, even in multitasking, what you need to, do first, and maybe that the other task can take a back seat, as a matter of fact. And yes, I follow some of things what Aditya is already saying, like multiple optometrist, multiple chair units, wherein I move on to, so that things go a little faster when you are into a little heavy OPD.
But what about the administrative work, sir? Like, for example, like Dr. Mishra also said that he has a team of 3 people.
Right.
The chartered
So
accountant.
yes, in my case, Rohan, I get a huge help from my dad. Like I'm the second generation now, so dad is not much into practice. Of course, he does practices, but all these things get on are still on his shoulders, like the taxation, like at times management of the staff. So some of the staffs is like way old for last 30 years or other 40 years from the day one of our hospital. So some of these things goes, untouched from my end, because I hello, yeah, I hardly get to know about a little few things. Now that things are coming on my head, now that he's traveling, he's out. So now I am kind of making my own team, because that whole generation is moving out. Like dad is slipping out. The senior staff, that sister was there, she's also in her early 60s now. So I am creating a next team wherein I'm trying to have my own secretary who kind of runs, apart from these ophthalmic appointments and other things, like doing my tickets, all small things. So I am now starting to shed off some load. Okay, some of the important decisions are to be done by me, but of course some petty decisions, some things which probably they can take a call on, or reduce some charges, levi some charges for the patients, give some discounts with a certain limit, of course. So I'm trying to show a free hand to them.
Great. Dr. Mehta, sir, your opinion on multitasking? You are a multitasker yourself, and a great one at that.
I wish. I guess everybody's personality, but I would get bored doing one thing in life. Multitasking is really great fun. It's fun to do a LASIK, doing a complex phaco, and then getting a detachment done in your life. Same day. It's fun. Believe me, you can't get more variety in life. You can't get it more excitement, the adrenaline flowing. Everything else disappears. All your problems disappear. All your backaches can disappear. Everything can disappear in life. So what he's saying is, yes, you can't do everything, but you have to know everything. Your staff will not respect you. They can take you for a ride if you don't know what's going on. There will be overlapping of duties, and ultimately you have to be the ward boy also in your own clinic. You need to know whether the autoclaving, a sudden test, whether they are autoclaving it well or not. Things on which your life depends. You have to be thorough about it. So you have to look after everything. Very, very important. And there is no escaping multitasking. There is no escaping. Well, the finer tuning of the multitasking business is you can't take 3 phone calls at the same time. Whatever you're doing at that time, concentrate on that mono task. But the eternal fight between mono and multitasking, there is little choice from that. As I said, those multiple balls which are jiggling, and you'll keep jiggling that for the rest of your life. The more you avoid something, the more it will come and hit you. Take my word. And there's a very, very important statement which I make. Your strongest point is your weakest point, and your weakest point can become your strongest point. This is how I would put it across, and you have no choice. You have to get on, especially if you are solo practice. What happens in institutionalized practice, there are many things you may disagree, but you will keep quiet for the larger betterment, or your voice may not be heard. Whereas in your solo, buck stops at you. So you good, bad, ugly, take decisions. And you rather be fast, because the world is moving fast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we'll move ahead to our final talk, and then we'll have a nice discussion and end the meeting. So to educate us on how to structure non-ophthalmic departments in your practice, we have with us Dr. Nishant Madhivan. He's a graduate from Arvind Eye Hospital in Shankara Nethralaya, and he will tell us about the back-end functioning of the hospitals that he has, and what are the non-ophthalmic departments and how we're supposed to basically structure them so that there's a smooth flow of everything. And as everyone has been talking, that the load sharing has to be there, and how to smoothen that load sharing. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Roshan, and the whole team. So yeah, so when you first gave me this topic, I'm sure that if you had given it to me around 2 or 3 years ago, I would have told that I'm an ophthalmologist in my hospital, and why do I care about all this? But then I realized that yes, apart from ophthalmology and seeing patients, which is the most integral part, there is a lot more to run a hospital than the ophthalmic practice. I'm not going to talk about the surgery. I'm not going to talk about the audit, but I'm going to talk about the non-ophthalmic departments which make your hospital very important. So the key things I've learned as a hospital administrator are, one, to be organized, to communicate, because what you want to say and what the other person wants to perceive might be in 2 different ways, and to be very flexible. Never take it in mind that you are the head of the hospital, so what you say matters. So all must be wondering, how is it for a single practitioner, for 2 practitioners to make a decision? Just imagine 6 people coming together to take a single decision. I'm sure that that's not going to be an easy task, but yes, with the support of the whole family, there is a lot of things which we learn from each other, and each one has their own specialty. So I'll start by saying that yes, administration starts with it in terms of starting from your hospital rounds. When you walk into the hospital, the first thing you should do is go around the hospital and don't go to your cubicle. You will see a lot of litters all over the reception. The phone will not be in place for attending calls, and there'll be a lot of statutory things which you would need in place. So go around the hospital before you sit in your consultation room. HR department makes a vital role. Finance and auditing, which I'll be talking about, marketing strategies, maintenance of hospital, which is very crucial, the bioengineers who play a vital role in maintaining your instruments, the insurance department, the IT professionals, which takes care of your tally, your computer MIS, your computers, if you're having any uh, paperless informations. And in terms of other, I will say that in terms of celebrate your hospital like Founders Day, Hospital Day, and celebrate all religious functions. So in medical colleges, like how Dr. Saurabh told that 5 years of struggling with only medicine and coming out to realize that you have a lot more. I will also agree when he said that you need an MBA, you need some business strategy management to run how the nuances of business works in a hospital. So most of us are definitely should be entrepreneurs, and we always have this attitude that once I start coming to the practice, I want to take care of this. I have to see what is done. I have to take care of the outpatients. I want to see the finance. So later on, you will decide how to segregate your work to each one of them to make it sure that they are doing the best in their field. Systems, like how Dr. Aditya said, I would agree 100%. Systems stay in place, whereas people change. And delegate work. So instead of doing it all attitude, delegate work. And it's not only delegating work, to follow up that work is the most important. So I'll start by saying that what is important in an organization, first and foremost, definitely it is patient care, and then maintenance of the hospital and service, the supplies which is there, ethics and code of conduct. From the time they come, what is the mission and vision statement you're having in your hospital? What is the patient's ethics which they have? The safety in terms of where the fire exit is, how there is a ramp, and all those devices. Quality management, planning and decision making is very important in an organization. Finance and budgeting, staff management, MIS, and finally the marketing. I'll tell everything in detail. So the first and foremost, what I will say if you're having in an organization is make an organogram, because each one doesn't know what their work is unless and otherwise you specify what work they have and who do they report to. As I told you, 6 people in an institution, it is very easy for the staffs to play around with us. So they come to me saying that Dr. Nivian, my brother, has given this instruction, and they go to him and saying that Dr. Nishant has given this instruction. So there is a very thin line in between where I understand and agree that, okay, Nivian might have told this, but no, make sure that the responsibility of each staff has a hierarchy and you have a specific organogram in place. So when it comes to administration, they have to start with the MIS, which I'll be showing to you in detail. It starts from the parking lot. In terms of parking, when we do go to a place, we always prefer a good parking space. Yes. So same way, make sure that you have a good parking space. And it's not only that, we all should know that the ophthalmologist is the last person in the hospital which is seen by the patient. So my job is actually to take care of all the other departments who come before coming to see the ophthalmologist. Make sure the waiting halls are good, spick and span. We can, because most of the patients now starting in terms of appreciation and looks. Yes, they want cushion seats. Yes, they want some nice music. Keep a fragrance in your waiting hall. A small, a mild music which can go around in the background. So those kinds of small things will definitely make sure that the patient's waiting time, even though they're getting dilated, if they just listen to some mild music, they're not going to complain if the dilatation time is a bit longer. So many people ask me when I came and I asked about the administration, the first question is, how many OP did you see? I say, my hospital, we see around 50 OP. He's like, no, doctor, how many OP did you see? Which was a question which was really shocking to me because I had no idea. So I am going to just show few slides of what we do in our hospital on everyday basis. I'm sure if every one of you are able to fill up those columns, that means that you have a good administration process. The first I will say is the patient flow and the turnover. So how many new patients walk into your OP from every single day? How many are review patients? And what about the people who have consultation, the pharmacy they have gone to, the number of opticals? There is always a difference between the number of opticals which is written by the consultation saying that glass prescription, and there are a number of people who are buying it. So there is a slight mismatch over there. So you should know that how many of them even enter the opticals if you have, and how many of them are being converted to buying an opticals from what you prescribe. So each department has to have that. And next, so this is what we have, a monthly MIS which is done in terms of every department individually. So consultation is different from pharmacy to opticals to contact lens to injections. So if these columns are filled up, that means that you know specifically how many patients walk in for what particular work. So if you see that every investigation in our hospital has how many have been advised and how many has been done. So I feel that this is very important for knowing the management. Yes, coming to the patient care, they should know the clinical needs. The safety of the patient is very crucial because all these things are very important for NIBH. Even if a patient slips and falls, that should be documented. So the emotional needs is very important. I remember in Narayan Nethralaya, they have a yoga center in the hospital for patients care. People who are sick and are unhappy are actually having a session of therapy for their emotional needs. The patient's education is very important. They should be well aware of what they are going to undergo and what are all the possibilities which they have. Because finally, we know that it's the patient's satisfaction which is the most important. The staff attitudes towards patients. It is very tough for us to tell a new staff, hold the patient's hand. When a patient walks into my clinic, I make sure that they do not slip on my slit lamp before they sit, because there'll be a small leg rest which is there. So those small nuances which should be told to the patient, to the staff, to make sure that your patient is comfortably sitting and comfortably leaving your cubicle is what which is most important to having a very satisfying patients. So in the hospital system advantages, there are a lot of other departments which are there apart from ophthalmology. If you see that in ophthalmology, like how many specialties we have, I'm sure that the amount of super specialty of non-ophthalmic is much more. Staff, I'm sure that I will say my first preference is the staff, then comes the doctors, then comes the owners. So I give my preference to staff, as the manpower planning is very important. In terms of, we had a good discussion in terms of multitasking and monotasking. So I would disagree, because my parents' days, yes, there used to be one theater staff who finished the OT, who comes for their OP, see running. But I realized that in terms of the efficacy, when a patient is given one job to do, they do it perfectly. Because the next question you ask, why were you not in the OP? They say that I was in the theater. So the selection criteria is very important, especially when a staff leaves a hospital and comes to you. Make sure you do a background check. Yes, they might be very good in your interview. You might be very happy with them. But what is the reason they left the organization is very, very important when you're selecting a patient. Make sure every staff undergoes a training. First of all, they should know what your hospital is, why you have a vision and mission statement. So at least 10 days, they should not start seeing whatever job they are set to do. They have to undergo training. They have to observe each and every department, how it goes. Make sure that you have a performance appraisal at the end of year before you decide on salary hike. Make sure that even the staff grievances are dealt with, because many of them has, yes, personal issues, family issues, and day-to-day issues within the staffs as well. Recruitment should be perfect. Disciplinary procedures for all the staffs is very important. The wages and salary are a very thin line of problem where the patient, the staffs might be very unhappy. Usually in my hospital, the most unhappy time is the month of April, March, where the salary hike is there. So that is the time you have your performance appraisal, and then you get it done. And make sure that you reward and promote them if they are doing a good job. So next, coming to the materials, the main most thing, two things we are going to have is IOLs and the medicines. So make sure that whatever you procure, make sure that the receipt is there. Make sure that it is inspected in terms of manufacturing date and expiry date. The storage should be proper, and the distribution should, every branch should be in terms of, it is noted down. We have a book and we have a system where even a notepad, which is 10 rupees, is made sure that it is signed by the person who is getting it. So the inventory control is very important in terms of all the materials which you have in your hospital. The most important, the finance. I'm sure it is said by everyone. Yes, during our COVID time, our whole family had actually a full session with Mr. Anil Lamba, who spoke about the romancing of balance sheet. So always make sure you budget plan every instrument. So, and everyone knows about accounting. So it is very important because it is not only the top line which we are seeing in a balance sheet, we should also see the expenses, because we will actually realize that at one point of time, the income is really good, but you will, when you see your bottom line of your income sheet, you will realize that the expenses were leading more than the income. So always make sure that you have a check on the expenditure and the expenses. In terms of legislation, yes, in a hospital, be it single practitioner or a corporate, we need proper ethics. The pharmacy license is important, Clinical Establishment Act, the insurance is very, very important, the biomedical waste, the right to information for patients, staffs, and doctors. In terms of me being a corneal transplant, yes, we definitely have to have the transplantation certificate, the pollution control board, and NABH. These are mandatory requirements, I will say, in every hospital year on year. Branding, yes, there's a thin line in terms of what you brand, what you say, and what you are actually doing. Make sure that you do not cross the ethical boundary of branding, because we know that when we think of burgers, it's going to be Burger King, and when we all these. So make sure that your logo is branded. It is not wrong to brand what you are actually doing. And marketing can be in terms of your internal staffs as well. They do well, you set a target and they are able to achieve, incentivize them. Make sure that the billing is proper. And the place of marketing nowadays, everyone are into social media. So where you're going to brand them in newspapers, social medias, in pamphlets, make sure that you put a price and then decide on marketing. Promote your work, what you are actually doing. I will say the best branding person is not someone else, it is you as an ophthalmologist yourself. So make sure that you advertise the right products. Do not say about things which you don't do and which you're not doing. So my final take home messages will be: spend time in administration. We 6 of us as family members, we have one day in a week where none of us see OPD. So we admin from morning 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. So all our decisions are not at home. We do not talk about ophthalmology at home, because as everyone said, you need family time. So we have made sure that we are family at work and family at home. So at home, it is no talk on ophthalmology. Anything you want to talk on that day when you come to the hospital. So finance, make sure you see the bottom line, which is important. Set systems in place. Every department make an SOP and set systems in place. And this one sentence, which I always say, is complement each other and do not complicate each other, which is very important. Patients and hospitals actually go hand in hand. I'm really thankful for Roshan to give me the first talk which I've ever spoken of non-ophthalm. I'm sure that this is all the inputs which I've done in my hospital. I'll be happy if anyone else is able to share their points of view. But the only thing is, always look into admin as well. Thank you so much, Roshan, Pooja, Himanshu sir, and the whole team of IIRSI.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nishant. So you spoke about SOPs. And I think Dr. Anurag also had a mention about SOPs and checklist in his talk. So, it's one thing of having SOPs, and it's a totally different game having your entire staff follow those SOPs. So how do you make sure that, they follow what is happening? As you said, you do give one day in administration for the entire week. But on a day-to-day basis, how are you making sure that those SOPs are followed?
So the only thing is, before you set an SOP, what I will say is, we always, sometimes what we do is we write the SOPs, we stick it, we say you follow it. No, the team who, if it is in terms of, for example, we take it in terms of housekeeping. So the housekeeping team is called, they are sat down, we decide the SOP along with the housekeeping team. So we come to a conclusion what you can do and what we expect you to do. So that's why I said it's always give and take. It's not like, so per day you clean 3 times. It is not possible. But is it possible 2 times? Yes. And are they making sure that they follow it 2 times? That is only up to the HR That's why the organogram, which I said in the first place. So systems, then organogram. So who's in charge of organogram? The person who's in charge of HR in our hospital. And who should the HR report to? The director who is in charge of the HR. So each one has their either, and on the meeting which we have, it is up to the directors to make a presentation. We have to make a presentation on what the HR has done this week. So is it being followed? Is the SOPs done? So that is where the final say, I will say that it is only the directors of the hospital who has to have a look on whoever you are comfortable with, whatever best person you have, your hospital management, your hospital in charge person. But still, I will say that it all should come down to you as the owner.
Right. And Dr. Anurag sir, giving a free hand to your staff. Dr. Saurabh mentioned that he started now giving a free hand to the staff. So what's your take on giving a free hand to your staff? Of course, there is a staff which is there since a long time and someone new you recruit. So how do you induct a newly recruited person? Is it by straight away giving them a free hand, making them feeling comfortable, or what's your sense of it?
No, obviously you can't do that. You can't give anybody a free hand right from the word go. But yes, you have to build that network, that metrics into which a newcomer can come and fit in or gel in easily. So if you come to my hospital, what you would find is all the paramedics would be wearing an apron, which would be having a nameplate, the names written, and then down below their designation. And everybody has the same designation. The designation is vision warrior. We don't have optometrists, we don't have technicians, we don't have OT assistants, we just have vision warriors. So everybody, right from refraction to OT assistants to sterilization, everybody is trained in everything. I do not even give them the feel that they're multitasking. It is your task. You're not doing multiple things at the same time. We finish our OPD every day at say around 2:30 in the afternoon, and 3 o'clock is the time when we start our OT. So we have a half an hour window during which they come and discuss about a particular case of an IL-power calculation if they wish to, or if any other grievance needs to be told. Everything is done in half an hour, and they know that the rotation spot is X from Y in the next posting. So we keep changing staff every 15 days, and that is the whole purview of their tasks. So they do have a lot of free hand. But say there is a 0.5 cylinders wrong calculation in one IOL, everything gets dug out. We keep a record of every single biometry that is done. And if we dig, despite of 23 people doing biometry, that's the total number of staff I have, despite of 23 people doing biometry, we would dig out which person did Mr. X's biometry on last Tuesday. So the digging also is there. So the supervision is there. The strict vigil is there. They are given that free hand with the footnote that you are being supervised and you're being watched over. So yes, the hierarchy is not maintained in my hospital at least, because salary-wise, obviously, the optometrists, which are skilled laborers, would get more than somebody who is not that skilled, or GNMs and ANMs also have that cleavage. But then when it comes to designating them, we don't differentiate. And we do give them a free hand, but with a sense of vigil being all around them all the time. That aura is always there.
Yeah, Dr. Nishant.
Thanks, Anurag sir. So yeah, that's how it started. But then, that was the time when my parents did exactly like what you did. But then we realized that when we had one person to do the cataract workup, so in our hospital, we have one person who does the cataract workup. So the whole day job is just to do biometry, A scan, and this thing. So she's been trained so well. So any problem, what we found out, we realized that we could ask that one person. It was easy to discuss with that one person. And she says, sir, I think the IOL calculation is different because of maybe in terms of the calibration of the machine is required. So we were able to pinpoint the fault faster when we had actually given it to one job. But yes, that is each hospital dependent. For us, it is actually one person only who will do the workup. One person who will take care of the amblyopia therapy in either. So we became more of like that, no multitasking. Over the years, we had so much of problem because the time we spoke about the biometry, they say, no, it was the other staff who did it.
No, that is what, if you have a system which will tell you which staff did it, this will not happen. And the reason why I have employed this is because I really wanted to fight the attrition tantrums and attrition threats. Once you give every responsibility to one individual, that individual really starts thinking too high of himself or herself, and then starts looking for opportunities all around. So I have a very strong bench strength. If one of you leaves, 22 other people are there behind. So they would also manage the same set of jobs with equal efficacy. So don't serve me tantrums. I know how to train my guys. So it's that kind. So if you have that system in place, the 24th person who joins the queue also gets equally trained in-house without you putting in any extra effort, and comes out to be as good in 2 weeks' time.
Right. Dr. Mehta, sir.
Very interesting. The debate is eternal all over. But I'm more inclined with Anurag right now, the way I don't have a big volume practice. So one thing that I do is to make them answerable, is to make them sign. Whoever has seen that patient or has done that biometry or whichever procedure, they have to sign. So I know who's answerable for the correct or the wrong thing. So, the bottom line, the first thing which was told was that each person is assigned a particular thing. And Anurag said something, hierarchy means, I've had a manager looking after my clinic. I paid him a handsome amount, more than 150,000, 200,000 bucks kind of. And he was the least qualified to do anything. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. And he wanted to rule over people who were quite more qualified and more efficient. Now, this is what happens when somebody comes from a corporate background and they have got a post. What Anurag said, they say that I was so-and-so, I was drawing a salary of so-and-so. My last salary was so-and-so. The only reason why he wanted X amount of salary was they want that 22% or a 25% increase from the previous salary and get employed. And so that next time they go to the next place, even if they are dumb, they will get 25% more. So those corporate hopping guys are the ones who are difficult to. So what he said is correct. 23rd person also. So my life goes on, despite Anurag would say that, look, even before you guys came, I was doing everything and the clinic was going very well. So the clinic is not running on you. It's running on support of everyone. And that's how that multitasking will help. But each one to its own, and you have to give orders to various kinds of people. It's a big institution, larger turnover. Maybe what, he said that we must have multiple designation for multiple people. So you have two schools of thought, whichever works for you, good for you. But answerability, yes. Hierarchy, at times they feel very hurt. Somebody who is, and the efficiency goes down if somebody is hurt. They may not tell you. But even though they are doing good work, efficient than the others, they are taking less pay. How many of you agree with me that there are people in your hospital, some of them at the lower rank, but are way more efficient than some of the senior ones?
Definitely, sir.
Anybody would like to agree with me on that?
Definitely.
Yes, sure, sir.
Yeah. So, and that's what happens. And ultimately, they are the ones who get the maximum load of work. They are the ones who are doing maximum work. And yet, if they are going to be humiliated, they are going to feel very humiliated. And that's one of the reasons of discontent and lower efficiency then.
Right. So Dr. Saurabh and Dr. Aditya for closing comments.
I completely agree with how Sir has put it together. But I also want to add that it's a good balance. Like what Nishant is saying is also correct. As well as what Dr. Anurag and Dr. Himanshu are saying, I think the balance has to be met somewhere. You have to make some places where you won't make a compromise and get people, that you won't, like he said, for IL power calculation, I have one person. So the trust does go through those veins that this person can do a fine job. I'm pretty sure that person is a good counselor as well. So it works in multiple ways to have that one person dedicated for that job in his practice. Whereas you may not have the need to have that person in your practice because you may be doing the counseling after looking at your biometry sheet. And you, like Dr. Anurag said, I have 10 people who can do the same job beautifully because I've trained all 10. So if one leaves, I have 9 more to follow. So to each his own, have a balance, but there'll be some compromise places where you can compromise, and you'll have some places where you don't want to compromise. So you are the judge for that. Like Nishant said, in the end, it all boils down to the owner.
Dr. Saurabh, sir, closing comments.
Yeah, so I would, agree on both these sides. But see, what is important is the repeatability. That person, if you even all the 23 or 24 in Anurag sir's practice to one person in Nishant's practice or my practice, that reading has to be repeatable. If the 23 people can do it, good enough. If that one person or two-person you've trained them can do it, is something what you want, because you don't want a compromise on your results. Is very important. Okay, staff attrition is a problem everywhere, but I think we can deal with it. Depends on the kind of practice, the kind of flow what you have. But yes, repeatability, because you don't want to really think कि आज seventh ने किया था या ninth ने किया है. You are not sure कि how good, because I am sure not everybody can come up to the same efficacy. Maybe one or two would be good, third would be lesser, fourth would be again good. So maybe training two, out of them two, you know which one is better. So on these complex cases, you would want that X to do that rather than Y being doing, or maybe if the Y has done that, then X can calculate rather than a lot of people doing all the jobs. So it is, everybody's how it works for you. As Himanshu said, sir also said that you would have of both the worlds. So, but in my own practice, it works like, if you call it hierarchy, maybe. So the bottom line in my hospital is also for all the staffs is you cannot say no to anything. I would not give you something which is probably not you're below your dignity or something like that, but you would not, like an optometrist will not would not say that he will not be good at counseling, or he cannot do something probably at times if he's needed at the reception. Or I had experiences with one of some of them, like, we are not supposed to do that. So I told them, see, the system would run without you also, but you would have to adopt to the system. And I am, you're not in a big corporate, you are in a small place, in a small practice with me. So I would want you to, do, everything, maybe do what you are at best. So this is what I would say that,
Yeah, so I think it's got a lot to do with your geographical location also. I think in bigger cities, attrition, you can deal with it because there would be a lot of people there for you to hire. But when you are in a smaller place, then it becomes a problem if somebody who has been doing a certain task for you for a long time suddenly leaves, and there is a certain vacuum that has been created. So I guess it's got to do with your geographical location as well, and the availability of staff that is there for you. Like, for example, in Cuttack, I would believe it would be a lot more difficult than in Chennai or in Delhi or Bombay, for example. But I agree. There has to be a balance in our practice. Everybody knows everything and everybody has to do everything. Because again, we have a practice at a smaller place, and I always want to give a signal that, it's not, the institute is not running because of you. If you want to leave, you can leave. There is always a backup to do the exact same job as you are doing. So yeah, it makes sense in a smaller city per se, I would feel. In a larger city, of course, since you have a lot more choice, you have 4 people eyeing the same job if somebody goes also. And as Dr. Anurag said that, if the 24th person would join his practice, within 2 weeks, he would learn everything. Because that's how the system is made. That's how it is done, that person would learn everything. So training that person would not be a challenge. Sometimes what happens is that we feel that if a person who's been working with us for 4 to 5 years, 10 years, if this guy goes, then training a new guy will be a difficulty. But in my personal small, short experience, it's not very difficult. They do come and they pick up everything that's there in your hospital within about a month or so. So yeah, Dr. Pooja, if you can
Thank you so much, everyone. We are so glad to get such positive wisdom from our pioneers and esteemed speakers. For those who are stuck at crossroads and those who are confused on how to run the show smoothly, I'm sure that this webinar has helped them tremendously. And for those who missed out, it's saved on our channel for future references and re-references. I would now like our past president, Dr. Himanshu, to give his closing comments. Before we see you next month back for season 2, chapter 2, advantages and disadvantages of incorporating TPA and government schemes in your practice. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Pooja and Rohan, for organizing this lovely. I mean, as always, I picked up so many points. There's so much to be learned from everyone, and they are very lucid and clear in whatever they have expressed. Really happy to see the full-scale participation. Nobody has left. Anurag, thanks so much. Saurabh, really nice of you. Nishant and Aditya, great. Give my regards to your parents. And really great fun, and everybody's enjoying it. We're all learning from each other, and that's the whole beauty of multitasking. We could very well say this is not my job, that's my manager's job. We all are multitasking right now. And if we weren't, we would be bored of going the same lane, same highway. I wonder a super duper specialist whose job for 30 years is to just go into the middle lane and just do one thing. How boring it would get, and without looking at anything else. So I guess we all have our takes in life. There are pluses and minuses to everything. But there's so much to learn from everyone, and there is no correct and there is nothing right and wrong. There is perfection. That at the end of the day, patients should do well. You should have your brand equity. You are loyal to your patients. You are loyal to your staff. If this message goes to your staff and this goes to the patients, everybody else will be cleared out. Those who don't deserve to be in your institution will automatically get filtered out. So I guess whether you take one way or the other way, if you are clear, as he said, Nishant said, goal plan. But over a period of time, if you have got responsibility and you've spoken well, you're doing well for the patient, they see your body language, they see how you behave with the patients. And the hierarchy goes clear cut down from top down. Doesn't go anywhere else. There's a good old saying, Jahan Raja Chor, Wahan Praja Chor. Same way, the story goes on, how it is. So if you're good and the staff realizes that you've been good for the patient, they have no reason to do vice versa. They'll be 10 times scared to do anything otherwise. They can't put on an act. So the buck stops at us every which way. And thanks very much for participating wholeheartedly. Really appreciate. And Pooja, Rohan, brilliant. You need to take this up even further because it helps everybody. This is not just ophthalmology, which we can learn. So much is there on the net. Actually, we don't need a single conference. Everything is there on the net. But these are things which are not there, truly speaking. These are things which we have to learn in our life. There is no book written about this anywhere. It's only by hard experience. What Anurag said, that insurance, why, there's one small point which you mentioned was so beautiful. Why a private limited? Very important. These are such important things, and tax saving. You learn how to deal with your chartered. You learn how to deal with your insurance companies, how to deal with your pharma companies, how to deal with your instrument suppliers. There is so much that you have to do, and at every stage you are balancing all of them. Brilliant. Absolutely. Great output, Nishant, Adit. Very, very, very thanks. Saurabh and Anurag, thanks so much for being there and participating and making this really shine in the evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
I also like to thank our micro team, Mr. Ashish and Navneet, who helped us through season 1 and the continued support every time, for all the help at the back end to run this event so smoothly. Thank you, everyone. See you in August for the next chapter.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Himanshu,
It was
sir.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Good night, sir.
Saurabh, sir.
Bye.
Hi, Saurabh, sir.
Bye, Nishant, sir.
Oh, hope the YouTube link is turned off.
Yeah. It was
Good. Amazing, Roshan. Learning a lot.
Hey, that's Rohan, man.
Rohan.
Roshan,
I tell you what,
I
when
think
I
it's
was
a
in
coin.
Bangalore, I
Hey,
got
is the link of live streaming?
it must be off. But when I was in
Roshan,
Bangalore,
Roshan.
I got this so often. I think over there, Roshan is a more common name than Rohan. So
I
Somehow
actually
it is
went to
like
the
Rogan.
I went to the participants list to cross check, is there a Roshan in there? And I've missed out on.
That's Nishant.
Great, brilliant guys.
Yeah,
Amazing,
Congratulations, Rohan. It's been amazing.
Thank you, sir.
everybody. Bye.
Great.
Very
night.
fruitful
Good night.
evening. Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.